Going into Ghost of Tsushima, I had a few biases and expectations. Tired of open world games, I was cautious if Ghost World would take a page from Ubisoft titles and be filled with tedious quests and towers to climb to pad out game time. I expected high production values and mature storytelling. Sony has carved out a niche for itself in the single-player focus space, and if anything, tries to be the HBO of game storytelling. But its games have also been criticized for their sameness, so I also expected skill trees, basic stealth, and shallow RPG systems. In a way, the game met, exceeded, and failed those expectations, creating a somewhat safe but still worthwhile open-world game. The presentation of Ghosts has been much praised for its depiction of 13th century Japan. I'm clearly no expert and not even concerned with realism, but the game does not feel cheap at all. Everything looks so well realized. The game is brimming with detail, all while finding a balance between gritty realism and picturesque beauty. In a way, it reminds me of the Jet Li movie Hero. The environmental cinematography border on a fantasy depiction of Japan, like Hero did for ancient China, yet the costume design and world do not all feel fake. This isn't an anime depiction of Japan. This feels more realistic while also asking you to admire the beauty. And it is beautiful. So beautiful that I somewhat get lost in the open world. The world stops feeling like an actual place as the environment blurs together. It could just be my modern day over-reliance on waypoints, but in the end, I never learned my way of the land. It lacked noteworthy specific areas or places of amazing scale that I loved to traverse because of their geometry, our environmental uniqueness. It's a pretty world, but yet somewhat shallow. Shallow is not too far off from how I would describe the story. It's not offensive, it's engaging enough, but it's also what you expect. You say samurai, I think honor, and honor is a lot of what they talk about in Ghost, which is fine. But much of the reason I find this dry is because Jin Sakai, as the protagonist of the game, is somewhat boring. The game is the story of his delusionment with the samurai, which is interesting and something you see in Kurosawa movies, of which greatly and clearly inspire this game. But Jin lacks charisma. You understand his plight, but I'm not sure you 100% care. It goes through pretty much every typical plot point you'd expect too, complete with a bloodlust berserk scene. He lacks personality and presence. He's a stoic and honorable man, and what else could I really describe him as? While Jin starts off a bit naive, and the story shows how his naivete towards warfare hardens, he himself does not feel very changed as a character personality-wise, which he should be, as his world is shaken. Sure, he eventually throws away the shackles of honorable samurai, but as a character, his persona feels mostly the same. He is simply not engaging. Still, as a story, it is very earnest and clear, but I question if the reason I felt somewhat meh on it is because of the game simply being an open world, and thus having to be spaced out for hours. Perhaps I fail to remember the various big plot moments as they are stretched thin. Perhaps the villain fails to leave an impact as he sparsely appears, though either way, he hardly has much of a presence, showing up in a few cutscenes here and there, mostly to spout evil whatevers. As an antagonist, the Katen Khan is hardly memorable, so there's little to keep me motivated to hype up to a confrontation. Also, the game's very serious, never pausing for anything else, so much so that it could be tiring. Though a few of the character side quests do offer interesting story moments and are worthwhile to do. With the storyline involving Buddhist warrior monk Norio, you see how your own descent into the ninja way of taking matters into your own hands has influenced another person who was also previously set on a rigid path. It is a decent story angle, and I appreciate the attempt to use the cast to explore and mirror aspects of the game's themes. Archer Sensei Ishikawa's quest offers a grayer perspective on the samurai. It also has one of the best side quests that offers a unique quiet mission where Jin meets Ishikawa's former student in the snow. The mission plays up the atmosphere and mystery of who the character is to show that there may be more to the story than previously thought. Honestly, the game needed more quests like this. The quests often have little variety or moments of uniqueness. Rarely does the game entertain with missions that step outside of the normal design flow. Lastly, Lady Masako Adachi is a revenge story that maybe goes places you wouldn't expect. The other character stories are pretty one-note, but I did all of them because they felt at least handcrafted, even if most of them played out the same. Tying the side quests to the supporting cast makes them feel less like side filler content on an emotional level. It's not the Witcher 3 levels of blending side quests into the main story, but it is still something to make them feel less like busy work. The other side activities sadly feel pretty tedious. Liberate town this, and destroy enemy cabinet that, often with the constantly repeating 3 groups of enemies you must take down. The mission structure and design is typical open world, though the game easily allows you to follow the critical path that is simply what you want to do. When I finished the game though, almost like open world game parody, it reminded me that even though the main bad guy was gone, there was still lots of work to do. In English, there's still lots of enemy encampments to take down, random towns to liberate to unlock that platinum trophy. I exited the game with a sense of accomplishment at defeating the main problem and not concerning myself with busy work. Yet because it is an open world game and I must traverse between missions, I did do some of these copy and paste side activities because the combat is truly fun. Not quite simply Batman Arkham combat, but clearly influenced by it, with stance switching that reminds me of Neo. So there's a lot of the hallmarks of this type of action game. Enemies that surround you and attack almost in a line, and a timed counter and parry system. So you can stand there and elegantly counter enemies and look like an old samurai movie where you calmly take out attacking enemies, or you can go out on the attack and break their own defenses. The problem though is you are very limited in how you can do that, since you have to be in a specific stance to do that, which offers little creativity in encounters, and often the best offensive strategy is to just match the strong attack to break through enemies to death, which is also very effective and can stop them from committing to an unblockable red signal attack. So the combat becomes samey. See a shield dude, go to shield stance. See a dude with a polearm, go to the stance that allows you to break them, and so on. Stances don't become this thing you want to learn and master. They just become what you have to do to make things bearable. There is still plenty of fun in the simple tension of trying to be the perfect samurai and take no damage, but the game's tricks are all played pretty early, leading to a game that feels like you're doing the same thing over and over again. Being an open world title also means this is stretched out longer than a simple linear and well-paced game. You combine this with a camera system with a lack of lock-on, where attacks can go after the wrong enemy or not keep up with you as you dodge enemies or get confused when allies are around you, and you have a game that feels not 100% tuned for greatness. But it's also because, in general, the game feels like it plays it safe. Ghost has the requisite skill trees that do add moves, that do allow for more options, but it's honestly nothing you haven't seen before. In general, the game's definition of a modern open world game. Nothing more, nothing less. Like every modern game, it has stealth that is basic and good enough, but feels like it's just there because that's what games do today. It becomes packaged with the trend of stay in the tall grass, but honestly the AI is pretty dumb and you could just run through on most occasions. While you can see all the obvious aping of modern gaming trends, a rather normal if unexciting story, and typical mission structure, still an engaging game, if only because it does offer a well-realization of a setting that rarely gets this level of attention. It may not be the genre-pushing game that exceeds all expectations, but it's good enough. Hey guys, this is Jojo Sonoshi. Thank you for watching that review. I hope it was better than the Avengers one. Still not perfect, but this is a learning process. Yeah, thanks for watching. Please subscribe and comment, and see you later. Thanks.